الله أكبر الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تلك آيات الكتاب المبين. إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون.
ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We find that the first and the last blessing upon the Muslim is the one of guidance to Al-Islam. As the Quran mentions, Alhamdulillah, الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who guided us to this, to Al-Islam. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not guided us, then we would have been amongst those individuals who are astray. And thus we find that unfortunately there are certain elements that also take the person outside the fold of Islam. That which is known as Nawaqidul Islam, those things that nullify your belief, that take you outside of the parameters of Islam, that the ulama have collected and compiled together. Some of them, many of us Muslims are aware of them. What comes to mind, al-istihza'u bi sunnati, to mock and to belittle the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That at times a person may not implement the sunnah, and there is no harm in that, carrying the meaning that the person is not belittling it, not speaking against it, not questioning it. But everybody has da'ful iman, a weakness of faith or misunderstanding that they need to work upon. So as long as a person doesn't speak ill of the sunnah, doesn't undermine it and ask questions about it, the person is safe. Likewise, we find that not to judge by the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which today has become great contention for many individuals, but the principle remains that the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been sent down, and tahkuma bil Quran, that you judge with the Quran, you legislate with the Quran. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ, then ظَالِمُونَ, and then al-kafirun in the same surah inside Surah Al-Ma'idah. Whoever doesn't judge by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then those individuals are the rebellious ones, they are the oppressors, and finally they are the disbelieving individuals. So a person who refuses to judge with the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or questions the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be leaving the fold of Islam. Likewise, there's other elements that the ulama have collected of believing that another law is applicable, or to go against the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or to fall into clear shirk, disobedience, etc., associating partners towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is another element that concerns a mass portion of Muslims who unfortunately are involved in this action and fail to understand that the practicing of this action or being involved in this action can also nullify your faith. It can take you outside the fold of Islam. So an average Muslim may not mock the Sunnah, may not say anything about the Quran, may not say anything about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you find unfortunately many average Muslims will be involved in the topic and discussion today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, of a sihr, will be involved in some form of magic. And magic that we find is something, if a person practices magic, is involved inside magic will leave the fold of Islam. As we find in the famous hadith, اجتنبوا سبع الموبقات, stay away from the 7 destructive deadly sins, because these sins will take the person outside the fold of Islam. First we find الشرك بالله سبحانه وتعالى, to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the ultimate destructive sin. إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. Indeed, shirk is the greatest oppression that the human being can do upon oneself, and likewise to attribute a partner towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is a shirk? Al-ishraku billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, and taj'ala lillahi niddan wa huwa khalaqaka. You ascribe a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the one that created you, the one who nourishes you, the one who takes care of all of us. That's the Quran mentions, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. Twice inside Surah An-Nisa, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive every sin the person commits, but if they die upon committing shirk, that person will not be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Straight after a shirk, we find as-sihr. So اجتنبوا سبع الموبقات, stay away from the 7 deadly sins. The first sin being to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second sin being the practicing of magic. And just to complete the hadith, the companions asked the question, وَمَا هُنَّ? They asked, what are these 7 elements? قَالَ الشِّرْكُ بِاللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى, to commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالسِّحْرُ وَقَتْلُ نَفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, to kill an innocent individual, or to kill that individual out of a justified reason. The laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are implemented upon that individual. وَأَكْلُ الرِّبَى, the eating, the devouring of riba. وَأَكْلُ مَالِ الْيَتِيمِ, to eat the wealth of an orphan individual. وَالتَّوَلِّي يَوْمَ الزَّحْفِ, and to run away on the day whereby the 2 armies they meet, the good party meets the bad individuals, etc., and then you run away in a state of jihad. وَقَدْفِ الْمُحْسَنَاتِ الْغَافِلَاتِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, and to blame the pure chaste women, to blame them for any form of adultery or fornication, etc. This is a major sin. So these are the 7 major sins inside the hadith, inside Bukhari and Muslim, that a person should stay away from these deadly sins. A discussion then begins to take place amongst the ulama, that why is magic mentioned straight after shirk billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why is that the order? The other order begins to differ, possibly in different wordings, but magic is mentioned straight after the association or ascribing partners towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here the ulama mentioned 2 reasons for that. ما فيه من استخدام الشياطين. The only way to learn magic is to the usage of the devils, and the only way you get the attention of the devils is via committing shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we're going to mention, that those individuals who get the devil or the jinn to help or to aid them, they have to offer certain sacrifices or practices to be able to enter into the world of the jinn or the world of the devil. So thus is linked to shirk. There's only one way to enter into the world of black magic, is via associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second, we find ما فيه من الدعوة علم الغيب, that a person is claiming knowledge of the unseen. When they travel into the world of black magic, they begin to make certain claims or certain things they begin to visualize. So they're claiming the unseen, that this will happen or this will begin to take place, or I will do this to you. So all of this can only take place once a person has broken their bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has turned away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has begun to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And don't be surprised, you find many individuals begin to worship the devil. They worship the devil to be able to think that they are gaining some form of information from the devil to help the masses or to help people around them. Indeed, the devil only makes these people do these actions to belittle them, to mock them. If you read into the world of black magic, you find some silly practices that begin to take place. And the devil is only saying this to these individuals to carry out these practices to demonize or to belittle the human being. And the human being thinks that I've gained possession of the devil or the jinn is going to help me in what I want to do. In essence, you've become a slave of the devil, of the jinn, and you are serving the interest of the jinn, not that the jinn is serving the interest of this any human being. Likewise, the Quran mentions يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْجِبْتِ وَالطَّاغُوتِ. These people, they believe in a jibt wa taghut. Here we read the tafsir, this ayah in Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter of Quran, verse number 51. وَقَالَ عُمَرْ الْجِبْتِ السَّاحِرِ. معنى الجبت, jibt carries the meaning of a sahir, the magician. والطاغوت هو الشيطان. Other ulama of tafsir have mentioned that al-jibt بمعنى الكاهن, the soothsayer. Likewise, you find al-taghut as-sahir. The taghut in this ayah is the magician. Others have said, yani al-jibt as-sahir bilisan al-habasha, the Abyssinian people. Al-jibt in their language means a magician. And as for taghut, it is al-kahin, the soothsayer. So this verse inside Surah An-Nisa, ulama tafsir, if you look back at tafsir of Ibn Kathir, say that this ayah is talking about these people, they believe in the magician. They believe in the soothsayers who will come and help them, etc., or rescue them, whatever it may be. And thus you find that the punishment of a person who practices magic, or is involved in sorcery, or is a magician, haddu sahir darbuhu bisayf. The punishment for a person who dibbles and dabbles in magic, or is a magician, is to be executed with the sword. Here the ulama begin to discuss, how about if the person repents? Some of them have gone to the view that their repentance is not accepted. Why? Because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that they're telling the truth. Because a person who's become a magician by profession, a person who's involved in black magic, and throughout their life they've been deceiving people, there is no way for you to ascertain whether this person is a truthful individual. So you execute them, finish. If they're truthful, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them, etc., whatever it may be. So you take this person apparently that they have still not repented. They are still to be executed according to the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what you find in that verse that I mentioned at Surah An-Nisa, read the tafsir, you find that Umar ibn Khattab kataba to some people around him, he sent a letter to them. He said, أَنِقْتُلُوا كُلَّ سَاحِرٍ وَسَاحِرَةٍ قَالَ فَقَتَلْنَا ثَلَاثَ سَوَاحِرٍ. He wrote to the people, kill any male sorcerer or female any sorcerer that you find. So we killed 3 magicians from this any commandment of Umar. Likewise, his daughter mentions that she had a slave girl of hers executed. Why? Because she had tried to practice magic upon her, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So before we begin to attack the Islamic law, because many people begin to twist these words that we are here to execute the magicians, etc., that we find, let us go back and look at the Western world of how it relates to magic. If you go and read inside the Torah, the Injil, read inside the Bible, you find inside their own books, you find it is forbidden to practice magic. Magic is something blameworthy, magic is something which is sinful, that a person should stay away from it. Officially, Judaism, Christianity characterize magic as forbidden witchcraft and have often prosecuted practitioners of it with varying degrees of severity. Magic is only possible through a pact with shaitan and the agents with the devil. So the only way to enter into the world of black magic is to make an agreement with the devil. The beginning of magic that we find, the word sihr, goes back to sahartu sabi. I deceived, I tricked the boy, young individual. You could trick a child, hide something from the child and deceive it. Others have said that the word sihr, it goes back to asluhu al-khafa, goes to something which is concealed, something which is hidden. Because while you find فَإِنَّ السَّاحِرْ يَفْعَلُهُ خُفْيَةً, the magician who performs magic, a charm, a spell, or whatever it may be, does it in a state of secrecy. Nobody knows what this individual is doing. So the word sihr goes back to something which is concealed, khufyatan, something which is not apparent to the visible eye. Likewise you find سُمِّيَ السِّحْرَ لِأَنَّهُ يَحْصُلْ بِأَمُورٍ خَفِيَّةٍ لَا تُدْرِكْ بِالْأَبْصَارِ. Person begins to do certain acts of deception that a person by the naked eye is not able to visualize what this person is doing or what they have done upon an individual. هُوَ مَا يَفْعَلُ السَّاحِرُ مِنَ الْحِيلِ وَالتَّخَيُّلَاتِ. It is from plotting and planning and deception that the magician practices. Also, this point, it should be crystal clear, because some people think that if I find the magic, if I find the spell, it will help to remove that harm which is upon me. That's not totally true. If you don't find where the spell is, where the magic is placed, you could still destroy it. You could still remove the impact of that spell upon the individual. Because many individuals, they believe we have to physically find where that spell is, and then we're able to dismantle the spell, and then the magic will be removed from the individual. Wherever you you can remove the spell. As we're going to mention, use the remedy of the Quran and Sunnah. A person is able to protect themselves from the harms or the evil of that spell upon the individual. Other ulama mention that magic is derived from magus, which is an old Persian word, the way of the Zoroastrians. Zoroastrians are those individuals who used to worship the fire. So that is, the word goes back to them. Others say that the word magic entered into the English language from the French word, which is known as magique. By the 14th century, it entered into the English language. Other ulama like Imam al-Shawkani in his Tafsir Fathul Qadir mentions the word magic goes back to the word majus. The word majus is only mentioned once inside the Quran, inside Surah Al-Hajj. Inside his tafsir he mentioned that who were the majus, who were the Magians, what was their practice or what were the actions that they believed in. هُمُ الَّذِينَ يَعْبُدُونَ النَّارِ. They are individuals who used to worship the fire. يَقُولُونَ إِنَّ لِلْعَالَمِ أَصْلَيْنِ النُّورِ وَالظَّلَمَ. They believe that the world has two deities to worship, light and darkness. They're those individuals, وَقِيلَ هُمْ قَوْمْ يَعْبُدُونَ الشَّمْسِ وَالْقَمَرِ. They are people who used to worship the sun and the moon. وَقِيلَ هُمْ قَوْمْ يَسْتَعْمَلُونَ النَّجَاسَاتِ. They are people who begin to use filthy objects and substances in their worship and their ritual practices, etc. Others said they are people who Christians or Jews who fled away from the teachings of Judaism and Christianity. Others said that they took some aspects of Christianity, some aspects of Judaism, and they combined it together. If you take all of this together, you get majus. Take elements of all of these beliefs together, you find that this evil practice, what many people begin to get involved in. This is the beginning or the foundation of magic. As for the word sorcery, it goes back to the Latin word source. Source, which carries a meaning of apparently meaning one who influences fate, one who influences destiny. That's the meaning of sorcery. So the person who practices sorcery is trying to affect destiny, that my destiny will change by this sorcery, or I'll be able to protect myself. And it's very important to understand the terminology or the meaning of these words, because it has a big impact to understand why people use these words or why they have these practices. Some of these individuals, they believe that magic goes back to two of the prophets. They believe it either goes back to Sulaiman alayhi salam or to Musa alayhi salam. This is what some individuals have written. If you study Judaic material, what's known as the Judaic magic that you find, Kabbalah magic that you find at the moment, and many even famous stars, they follow this type of magic. People like Madonna, Michael Jackson, you find Elizabeth Taylor and other individuals. They used to follow these rituals, these practices of all to do with the practice of magic, etc. that you have. And the essence of this, they say, goes back to Sulaiman alayhi salam, that he was involved inside magic. Obviously this is something false, but we're just trying to highlight how they begin to interpolate or begin to extract this from the various sources or from the Quran, begin to create this feeling that these prophets may have been involved inside magic or sorcery. إِنَّمَا كَانَ سَاحِرًا يَرْكَبُ الرِّيحِ. The Jews said indeed he was a magician, because he used to fly upon the air. The air, as we know, a gift that was given to Sulaiman alayhi salam, that the wind would travel him for the distance of a month, would take him for a journey. So they had this belief, or they used to say that he wasn't a prophet. Indeed, he was a sahir, he was a magician. That's what the Jewish belief was about Sulaiman alayhi salam. And all of this is based upon Israeliyat, Israelite traditions. If you go back to some books of tafsir, they begin to talk about Israelite traditions about the belief of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Various interpretations have been mentioned. That Sulaiman alayhi salam, that he one day entered into the bathroom and he removed his ring. And this was a ring that he would use to stamp the letters and the messages he would send out to the people. So as he entered into the bathroom, and he left the ring outside with the maid girl or a servant that was outside, and all of a sudden somebody came out of the bathroom depicting Sulaiman alayhi salam and said to the girl, "Give me the ring," took the ring and escaped with the ring. When Sulaiman alayhi salam came out, he asked for his ring and said, "I already gave you the ring." And that is when he discovered that who had taken the ring, but the jinn, the shaitan, had taken the ring and began to use that after the death of Sulaiman, that between every single line of Sulaiman began to stamp magic and sorcery. Other Israelite traditions mention that he had a scribe that he used to write the rules and regulations which he kept underneath his throne. When Sulaiman alayhi salam, he passed away, they dug underneath his throne, took out the scrolls and began to write kufr and magic in between those ayat. These are all Israelite traditions. We should be wary of these. These are all false. But the reason why we mention this is because many people, they read this and they believe that the instigator of magic or of sorcery goes back to Sulaiman alayhi salam. And all of this, they try to extract it from the verses of the Quran. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. We narrate to them the stories that you find of Sulaiman alayhi salam. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. The devils who came at the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Sulaiman alayhi salam did not commit any kufr. Rather, it was the devils who disbelieved. So it was the devils that came and began to teach the people magic, began to influence them. And the ayat that begin to mention about the task of these individuals was to separate between men and women. It became a source of fitna. So Sulaiman alayhi salam was telling to stay away from magic, or Harut and Marut, which were two angels that came down upon this earth. And people believe that they used to teach the people magic. They never taught the people magic. They taught the people to stay away from magic, to stay away from sorcery. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never commanded people to come towards the incorrect path, to follow kufr, to follow disbelief, to follow magic and sorcery, etc. These are all their own interpolations that they've made to prove that Sulaiman alayhi salam was an individual who was following any magic. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So they said, warn the people, stay away from the people who are learning magic, or nushra. Nushra is a type of magic to separate a man from his wife. And this is one of the most powerful elements of magic that you find, is to create dissension between a husband and a wife. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. Their task is to what? To separate between a man and a woman. And likewise, you find certain individuals have books now to also create love between a man and a woman. So that's you find from this ayah, ulama mention that magic has lahu ta'thir. Magic has an impact of creating immense love, immense hatred, having feeling of disliking something which you normally used to like, a bad feeling, whatever it may be. It has that impact. It can actually affect the individual and impact their feelings and their emotions towards one another. So likewise you find al-qurb wal-bu'd, to be close to someone, to be far away from someone, al-hasad, jealousy. And jealousy is one of the main components of the impact of magic, or person is led to practice magic, is led to harm another individual. As we mentioned, the person practices it in secrecy. If a person cannot get to someone directly, most times the result is what? They will secretly try to plot and plan and try to affect the individual, or make them to lose the blessings or whatever it may be that may have been given to them. And thus we find that in Islam there is no jealousy, because jealousy is something very, very dangerous. It's something what the first sin upon the earth before qatl, before killing, is jealousy. The brothers of Habil and Qabil, it was jealousy that led him to kill his brother, etc. So we find that following the way of the shaitan to encourage separation. As we find that shaitan, his arsh, his throne is upon the water, and he sends his soldiers out every single day. The soldiers come back and they report back, I made him do this, I made her do that, I made him do this, I made him do that. He says, you've done nothing. There's nothing special that you've done. Till one comes back and says, I made a man divorce his wife. So he pats him on his back and says, you are my comrade. You have done well of doing that. So the main intent of Islam is to keep the family unit. One of the main intent of the shaitan, after taking people to disbelief and kufr, is to break the family unit, is to take people away. And one way that this is done is via the use of magic, to break the family unit and to break the children and to break the family members, etc. So likewise you find min afdal al-shafa'a an yashfa' bayna ithnayn fi nikah. The best intercession a person can do is interceding between two spouses to rectify their affair and the situation amongst themselves. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. There is no way that this magic will harm any individual except for via the leave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم. They learn something which doesn't benefit them and something which doesn't harm them. So here the lesson that Muslim learns, that even if magic does exist, is performed upon an individual, it will only affect the individual via the permission or the leave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus the more the person strengthens their belief and their aqidah, the more they don't really worry about it. Just like hasad, jealousy is like a fire. Fire only begins to burn away wood. So the more the person may be tested by these elements and does not disclose it, the more that person will burn in their rage. The magic or the impact will only come back upon that individual and make them burn in their rage. But if a person begins to complain, begins to get over worried about it, and begins to display that, that's exactly what some of these people they want. They want to see the weak elements of the individual being professed inside society. Where a person remains strong in their creed and their belief, then it will just wither away. It will repel back to that individual, not the actual magic, but the harm will come back to that individual. Likewise, no matter what anyone says, because some people say we learn magic to defend ourselves from magic. So some people, they learn magic, defend the magic, Harry Potter, etc. that you find. They learn magic and the spells to protect yourself from Lord Voldemort or whatever it may be. من تعلم شيئا من السحر قليلا أو كثيرا كان آخر عهده من الله. Whoever learns a large amount of sorcery or small amount of sorcery, that is their final covenant or relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning the person has committed disbelief. So it's not about small amounts of magic or large amounts of magic. Any form of magic is classified as something which is haram. People try to say good magic and black magic, the dark sciences, white magic and black magic. There is no white magic and black magic. Kullu haram. It's all haram. White magic, they say, is for beneficial purposes, soft purposes, to protect yourself and something which is good. No. Black magic and white magic are both classified as haram in the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These individuals, they only harm themselves in this world and the next life, irrespective of what they earn. That's the Quran mentions, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. These individuals have no share inside the hereafter by the purchase or the usage of magic. And one sign that you can tell that a person is involved in black sciences or black magic that you find is these cards that you find left on your cards. We might leave a few outside in your cards now. What do you find? If you have a problem, this problem, that problem, solve all your problems, come to us. Then when you come to the individual, what do they say to you? They say to you something very, very strange. Go and get me a crocodile's head. Test, I'm not joking, go to them sometimes. They'll come with something strange, and everybody knows you can't come up with a crocodile's head in this country. So they say to you, give us £300, £400, we'll import it over from Australia or wherever it may be, and we'll bring that head and we'll find out where the sorcery and magic has been done for you. People ask you for your mother's name, her date of birth, your date of birth, etc. A real person who does ruqya, who heals people, does not need to know your mother's name. Okay, remember that. You don't need to know your name. So when a person says to you, tell me what your mother's name is, or tell me something special, something specific, that is a sign that this person is involved in something else. Because a real person who takes away black magic or takes away people affected with magic or whatever it may be, does not need to even know your name. Okay, doesn't need to know anyone's name. So when a person begins to ask you about certain people's names inside your family members, they're only possibly using the jinn to then enter into your family members to collect information. And then that jinn, the qareen, because this person has got control over their qareen, all of us have a qareen, will now travel to your qareen. And that individual will take out your database, just like you have now MI6, and need tabbing you wherever you go. They'll take your database and it will come up in front of them. And this person will then begin to relate things about you that only you know. They could even relate to you things that you was all on your own. You may have been sitting in your room and you may have seen something and laughed. The person will relate that to you, that on this day and this time you sat and you done this action. How did they gain that information? That's a sign of entering into the dark sciences. A real Muslim can never ever access that information. Thus you find that control of the jinn is forbidden in the Sharia. Any Muslim, even happen to be pious and they say I've controlled the jinn, is not allowed. Because we find that the Prophet Muhammad said, if there's any individual who can control the jinn, it would have been myself. But I released the jinn when the jinn came and tried to poke the fire in his blessed face. And he wanted to tie the jinn up to one of the pillars of Medina so all the children could come and play with the jinn. But I released it because Sulaiman a.s. made the prayer, "Oh my Lord, give me a kingdom that no one will possess after me." The kingdom and the control of the jinn. So out of respect, the Prophet Muhammad released this jinn and let him go. So from here that we learn, it's not allowed to control the jinn. As some people, they say, I've got a good jinn who works for me. That's not allowed in the Sharia. It's not allowed at all. No matter what the Muslim says, if they have the control of the jinn, or the jinn comes under their possession, they have to release the jinn. They have to warn the jinn and tell the jinn to leave. The jinn asks where to go, to say you need to go make hijrah to Mecca and Medina, inshallah. Don't worry, they don't need visas to go there, inshallah. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. How wicked, how evil is what they have purchased with their own souls. وَلَا يُفْلِحُ السَّاحِرُ حَيْثُ أَتَى. the magician will never be successful wherever the magician comes from. That's how the Quran describes it. So the sorcerer will never be victorious, will never win. So it's clear inside the Quran. If a Muslim has this creed, has this belief, then there's nothing for that individual you need to be worried about. So just going to Ali, take the keys, akhi. So give the brother the keys. Bilal, you can give the keys to. It's across the road there, yeah. Also, we find that Musa alayhi salam, people try to mention that the Musa alayhi salam, the attribute any magic to Musa alayhi salam, inna hada the sahirun alim. Indeed, Musa is a very skillful magician. Just because the people were practicing magic or sorcery at that time, that does not mean that the prophets of Allah, they learned magic or they learned sorcery. So they begin to make mention that Musa alayhi salam is the individual who began to also train the people in magic or sorcery. Now here we find at the time of Musa alayhi salam, there's what is known as genuine magic and illusionary magic. The genuine magic is what we just talked about. Illusionary means that something which begins to mesmerize the eyes, some form of deception, some form of trickery. That's what you find with Shaykh Sami ibn Taymiyyah when he began to have a debate with some of these sorcerers, and they used to walk across the fire. And so they used to prove that these are karamat, these are magic, this is magic, or this is special skills, special blessings. We are the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can walk across the fire. So he said to them, before I walk across the fire, because they challenged him, they said, you claim to be a pious individual, then walk across the fire. He said, before I walk across the fire, we both need to perform a ghusl, both need to bathe ourselves, wash our bodies before we go across the fire. That individual refused to walk across the fire then. Because why? This person had taken the skin or the slime of frogs and placed it upon the person's body, so when they walk across the fire will not burn them. So this is the type of deceptive magic that we find. So obviously Shaykh Sami ibn Taymiyyah, he understood that this individual is using a form of trickery to prove that he can walk across the fire. Just like many individuals today, David Blaine, Copperfield, Houdini, escaping from certain, some of them could be natural bodily causes. Houdini was known that he could break his arms from in between the sockets and take, or have a key maybe hiding somewhere inside his shirt, and he came out. But people like David Blaine, David Copperfield, being frozen in ice, making the Statue of Liberty disappear, flying on air, these are all questionable things. Either it's illusionary of the eyes, or it is actually the use of magic or the jinn. That's one of the companions, Jundub, when he saw an individual cutting somebody in half. So what did he do? He came to him and he cut him in half. And he said, now, tell him to put himself back together now. Because it's only a sorcery, a source of deception. So you find that box where the legs are on one side, body on the other side, it could be someone else's legs out there, put it together and deceiving the people. Anyhow, in Islam, illusionary magic and genuine magic is both haram. It's forbidden to follow any of these elements. So that's the Quran. When it talks about Musa alayhi salam, you find that the magic, that the sorcery, that Fir'aun or the magicians that they used was illusionary magic. It made to appear to them that the sticks or the staff have turned into a snake. Their ropes have turned into snakes. So it began to mesmerize their eyes. So even Musa alayhi salam, he felt slightly frightened when he saw certain things. He took a step back, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthened him and told him to throw down your staff. When he threw down his staff, then his staff turned into the snake and it gobbled up all of the rest of the snakes. And that's when the sahir, the magicians, they recognized that this is not illusionary, this is a miracle. And what did they do? They all prostrated. They all bowed down. From extreme kufr, from disbelief, they all bowed down. Then Fir'aun began to warn them that, are you bowing down to other than myself? Indeed, I will do what? I will crucify you, and I will amputate your hands and your feet from opposite sides, and I will slay you in this evil manner. But look what happened when Iman came into their heart. They said, do whatever you want to do. This is only a petty punishment upon this earth. Indeed, that disbelief has taken us far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now our Iman has strengthened us to take whatever punishment may be, yani displayed or yani thrown yani upon us. So the Quran mentions, Saharu a'yun al-nasi wastarhabuhum. They deceived the eyes of people and they created fear into the hearts and the minds of the individuals. So we find that genuine magic, blowing on tied knots, murmuring phrases over them, that you find sometimes people, they come and you see them doing weird and wonderful things. These are all signs that this person is not involved inside the Quran and Sunnah. Even when a person comes to doing ruqya shari'iyah, if a person isn't reading the Quran, at any moment you can't understand what this person is saying. It becomes gibberish. It becomes words you've never heard in your life. All of us, we can understand what the Quran is. As long as a person is reading Quran, it's fine. Ulama have differed about which ayat have a greater impact on a person possessed with magic or possessed with jinn. This is an element of ijtihad that exists. Some say certain ayat are more powerful, but as long as it's the Quran, it has a powerful impact. But at any moment the person goes outside the realms of the Quran, you cannot trust that individual. If a person begins to draw boxes and digits and numbers and certain strange things, then you know this person is a deceptive individual. They'll say to you, this means Bismillah Rahman Rahim, this means the name of Allah, so why don't you write the name of Allah? And don't be surprised, sometimes with every name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would even write the names of devils, of shayateen, the jinn would be placed there. So you might just see the name Ar-Rahman and think, oh, that's a trustworthy person. The rest of the words, you cannot decipher them. They could be calling upon the jinn to help them, they need to do the actions that they are doing. Likewise, as we mentioned in the beginning, taking a person's hair, taking your nails, your clippings, be careful, because people can actually use these elements to affect you. They can take your shirt or some element of your clothing and begin to perform magic upon you. That's why you find what's known as the witch doll, that they begin to poke the doll, etc. That can actually happen to individuals. They can take some element and begin to poke that element, that begins to physically harm the individual. Likewise, we find the use of strange medicines. We mentioned animal smoke, etc., to just burn smoke, whatever it may be. Look in a crystal bowl, or look into a glass, or whatever it may be, and then to see whether magic has been done upon you, etc. There are only formal ways that a person gives somebody Zamzam water to drink. They've read Quran upon that, or some elements of olive oil, etc. A person may rub that or drink that, and then they may vomit, they may feel sick, they may feel dizzy, they may begin to see certain things. That's possible. But other than giving you something, some strange potion, whatever it may be, tell you to drink this and then see how you feel. Of course you're going to feel sick if you drink some green potion that's given to you. You don't know what's inside there. Likewise, when people come in the disguise of being medics, that's a new format, that people come as being doctors, that they're coming to to heal you. And they quote all these famous books that you find, Ilmul Hikmah, Ruhaniyat, likewise you find Shamsul Ma'arif Al-Kubra, that you find famous books being written by these sorcerers and these magicians that you find. So people reading into these books of black magic and sorcery, these are individuals, a person should stay away from these individuals. Likewise, some people who are known as finders, finding your lost property, that they're able to find where you left something. It could be good business if we invest in this. You're advertising this to the people. If you lose something, we'll be able to track it for you and discover it for you once again. Likewise, you find some of these individuals are pious individuals, or claim to be pious individuals, who begin to do supernatural things. And thus you find that the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, some of them are able to do certain elements of blessings which are given to them, but they will never ever disclose them. But there's excessive praise of certain saints and certain people that we find, that people think that these people help them or they can protect them, etc. This is a dangerous belief. It's a dangerous belief that many Muslims fall into the trap, that these pious individuals, most of these individuals, they are fraudsters. They are liars. Some of them don't even pray, they don't even fast, they don't even live according to Sharia. Because the key of being a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَا اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. The criteria to work out who is a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a person who believes and has taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At any time a person goes against the Sharia, that is no longer a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person living in the jungle, in a state of nudity, eating leaves, grass, and living in a scruffy manner, in a state of impurity, and people think this is a saint. That's what some of our people, they think these people are saints. They think they have gone close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've seen an individual, a woman who's suffering from Down syndrome. And because she would just at times become hysterical, you know what some people used to say? That revelation is being brought down upon her now. Don't move. I visualized this with my own eyes. It's an elderly woman who had an illness, who had a medical disease which is logged as a medical disease, got nothing to do with any form of revelation or anything's happening to her, just normal woman, normal individual. But they believe that this individual is being inspired right now. So as we mentioned, that any time you find strange signs coming from an individual and they're trying to help you or trying to locate the magic or whatever, maybe stay away from these individuals who practice such things that we find. Likewise, we find that the way what these people also began to attribute to the Prophet Muhammad annahu sahir, that he is also a magician, with the meaning that he separates people from their family members, takes people away from the right iman or the corrupt kufr that they had, and leads them towards iman. The Prophet Muhammad himself mentioned, "Inna min al-bayani la sihra." Indeed, from certain words there is sorcery, there is magic. What does that mean? You know, there's some individuals who've got the power of speech, and what are they able to do with their speech? They're able to convince you. They're able to overcome you, overpower you with just their words. You know, some of those salesmen that you find can make you buy whatever, maybe just dust in their hands, they'll make you buy it. So that's the type. And likewise, some people who quote Islam as well. Inna min al-bayani la sihra. From certain speech, there's deception. That they allure people with their speech, with good words and whatever it may be, and they trick and they deceive people and take people away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was never given any deceptive speech. He was given jawami'ul kalim. He was given concise words, pure words, clear meaning. Spoke appropriately to the people. He never deceived anyone, never deceptive inside his speech or tricked any individual, as what these people are trying to think. So one should not fall into any element of temptation. You know, we're surrounded by the world whereby people read every morning, get the newspaper, read the horoscopes, or a black cat came my way, it's going to be a bad day today, I dropped salt, 7 years of bad luck, etc. Rabbit's foot, that people wear it as a chain because the rabbit could hear the demons that are coming or talking to the spirits underground, etc. I broke a mirror, I opened an umbrella inside the house. All of these myths that we find, it's all nothing but kufr. You know, just saying that, oh, I want to find out what's going to happen to me. I want to try to protect myself or preserve myself. So going to a soothsayer, going to look at the Ouija board that we find, you know, the crystal maze or the crystal ball that we find, or what we find people speaking to the dead individuals. You know, non-Muslims, they all like to come together and they say that the dead individual is going to speak to us. Once the dead leave this dunya, it's not that person that's speaking to you. It's only their qareen. It's only the qareen can live slightly longer, can live on, and the qareen will come and take on the voice of that individual, or it will be the actual person who's got control of the jinn will come and take the image of that individual or take the voice of that individual and begin to speak. As far as Muslims are concerned, once a person left this world, the person's dead, finished. In a dream, the person may come to you, may speak to you, you may be shown certain things. That's the world of dreams. But as for whilst you're living, that you come together on a table and you find that the curtains begin to move and everything, and then suddenly somebody starts speaking, etc. And this is all you need. A Muslim should stay away from this. Hatta you find Sharia warns that a person who just goes to the soothsayer just out of being inquisitive, just to find out what's going on. What has the Sharia said about that individual? Man ata kahinan aw sahiran fasaddaqahu. Whoever comes to a magician or a sorcerer or a soothsayer and believes bima yaqul faqad kafara bima unzila ala Muhammad. That person disbelieved upon that which was sent upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Lam tuqbal lahu salatu 40 yawman. And that individual's prayers will not be accepted for 40 days. That doesn't mean that the person doesn't pray now. There's no reward for that individual. So the reading of horoscopes, the reading of going to palmistry, telling someone to read your palm, you know, and so what does it say? Drinking of a cup of tea, and leaving the leaves behind and looking inside there. What does this mean? This all for Muslims should stay away from this. All these superstitious beliefs that you find amongst Muslims, we should stay away from this. Likewise, you find tying black threads like Hindu rituals, Sikh rituals on our cars, and this is a form of protection. To such a degree, you find people placing Ayatul Kursi. Yes, Ayatul Kursi is the greatest ayah of the Quran. But who said if you dangle it on your car, it will protect your car? Who said that? Even you find the wearing of ta'weed, that you find the wearing of the amulet. Most people, if you open up the amulet, it's not the Quran. Okay, 99 times, inshallah, if you open up the amulet, you will not find the Quran. Those ulama who allow the wearing of a ta'weed and amulet have strictly said it's got to contain what? The Quran. But even then, most of them, they say, stay away from wearing it. And if you begin to place your trust upon that and you physically think this will help you, then that is shirk. Because some people, when they don't have it on, what do they say? Oh, I left my ta'weed at home. Oh, no wonder I got late because I didn't have my Ayatul Kursi in my pocket. Okay? Or my wallet. People say that. They make these blunders. They make these statements. They're placing their trust on that piece of paper. They're placing their trust on that thread. Man wukila ala shay faqad ashraka. Whoever placed their trust upon something has committed shirk. You only place your trust in or upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing will benefit you or harm you except via the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma asabakum min musibatin. Any musibah or any calamity which befalls the individual is been already destined and pre-decreed and written with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the creed of a Muslim. The more stronger your creed is. So many people say, oh, why should we read about Tawheed? Why should we read about creed? This is the reason for reading about Aqidah. Because the word Aqidah goes back to the word aqd. Aqd means a knot. That's when the Quran mentions وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, from the female sorcerers who blow in the knots. They tie the knots, they blow in it, spit in it, and they tie it so it's not broken. So if your aqidah is the opposite, if your aqidah is strong, there's no way that someone is going to be able to physically have an impact upon you. Yes, it will have external impact upon you. Even the Prophet Muhammad at time, when the person done Labid ibn A'sim, done magic upon the Prophet Muhammad, it had an impact, but it never entered into his heart and his mind. He just began to forget certain things or became weary. But then he removed it. What did he say? He was revealed to him that the magic has been placed in the date seed, and he wrapped up with the leaves and placed inside the well. And then you find that Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas was sent down, 11 ayat in total. And each knot, read an ayah and blow upon it. That's the way you protect yourself. You don't need someone to come and necessarily come and read Quran for you. You know the Quran when you go to sleep. It's simple. Read Surah Al-Ikhlas, read Surah Al-Falaq, read Surah Al-Nas, read Ayatul Kursi. It will protect you throughout the night. Read it after every single prayer. Read the final 2 ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah. Read them when you go to sleep. It's a form of protection. You don't need anyone to come and protect you. But because we become laxical, something happens inside the home, that's it. Go and call the Ghostbuster. Adhkar al-yawm wal-masa, adhkar in the morning, adhkar in the evening. What does it do? It's all a form of protection. Most of us, we don't do this. Then we want to complain about other elements. You remain strong upon your adhkar, on your dhikr, reading Quran. The whole of Quran is shifa, is a cure, is a protection. It does happen, don't get me wrong, it does happen to people who know Quran, but it's very rare in comparison to an average individual. A person, it will happen, with no disrespect to women who may be on their menstrual cycle, who are not praying, who are not clean, etc., not paying attention to the Islamic practices, like what happens to people who are not worried about the Islamic rituals, that they easily get possessed or things begin to happen to them. And likewise you find the opposite. Not every time a person has a mood swing or is upset that they're possessed by the jinn. So if one day we know that women have a different mindset from a man, they may be upset about something and that's it, oh, she's possessed with the jinn. It's common practice in our culture that we find. That's it, go and call the person to remove the jinn from him. People have killed the woman. There was nothing wrong with the woman. It was just one of those days. Or the brother may have not been feeling too well on that day, was sad, was depressed. Right, there's signs that he's got a jinn in him. Tie him down, we get the jinn out of this individual. So likewise you find a person could be doing haram. There's many times I've faced people who come and said, oh, this person's infused with the jinn. They're smoking dope all day long. What's that got to do with the jinn? Or the jinn must have influenced them to start taking these haram substances. The person's a junkie. The person's senses are gone. They've destroyed their own brain cells. What's that got to the jinn? The parents will come and complain to us, oh, there's a jinn that's got into him that made him do this. No, he moved about with the society around him. He got influenced with the society. He began to take this haram. And now don't blame it on the jinn, because every time you want to blame someone, blame your own self. Even the devil will say in the day of judgment, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't blame me, blame your own self. All that I did is I whispered to you. الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. The one who comes and whispers in the chest of mankind and walks away. We are the feeble ones, the weak ones, and we listen to that whispering and we begin to follow upon that. So the devil obviously knows how to trap us, but at the same time we've been told how to protect ourselves from the evil, any of the jinn, etc., the magic that begin to do, and likewise take steps. In your room, sometimes people may have nightmares when they go to sleep. One sign could be pictures or images inside that room. Sometimes we let babies go to sleep, we're not vigilant. They could have pictures on their baby groves, pictures on their pillows, etc. And what happens? The angels don't enter that room. So there's no longer a protection of that child. The angels have left that environment. So then the jinn is able to enter, the devil is able to enter and to disturb the child inside his or her sleep. So some steps are very easy, practical steps a person can take at night to clear everything away from that room, or if a person has toys or whatever, maybe keep them in one room. Make sure the room is kept as clean as possible so that the angels are present in that room and are able to protect the individual. Likewise, read it upon your children. The Prophet Muhammad read it upon Al-Hassan wal-Hussein, do adhkar upon them when they go to sleep. So likewise we can do it upon our younger brothers, our sisters, our children, etc. when they go to sleep as a form of protection upon those individuals. So likewise we find that in conclusion that you need to develop a strong iman. That before we quickly go down the path of thinking that we need to do this, we need to do that, strengthen our iman, learn the Quran, learn the hadith, practice it and implement it. And inshallah, if these things do begin to take place, the person does not become over worried. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed this to take place out of his own knowledge for a reason that we cannot see, at times begin to understand, because a human being is limited. But there's much khair and goodness in this, that a person may become stronger inside the deen, may begin to recognize their weaknesses, may begin to recognize those people that they may love around them could be enemies towards them. And likewise, we know inside that community many times that magic is as we began with, is done upon an individual because there's an element of hatred, an element of jealousy, an element of rivalry that begins to exist. So Muslims should be one that should cleanse one's heart. As we began with, the greatest blessing that we all possess is Al-Islam. That's the ultimate blessing. If there's anything we should be jealous about, is about Islam. But even then, the word jealousy means ghibta, aspiration. La hasada illa fitnatain. There's no jealousy except for in two things. A person who's been given the Quran or been given knowledge, and a person who spends day and night gaining that Quran, gaining that knowledge. Or a person who's been given wealth and has spent it day and night in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what every Muslim should aspire to be like. Al-hasad means you don't want that blessing, nor do you want that person to have the blessing. You want everyone to lose the blessing. And that's not the way of a Muslim. Muslim has aspiration. You keep your blessings, I want to gain the blessings, and together we'll carry on the journey of the blessings. So one element of entering into the world of black magic and sorcery is the jealousy that exists amongst people to harm an individual around them. And we can find there's many elements of jealousy, whether it be the non-Muslims towards the Muslims, towards any of our family members who may not practice Islam. Likewise, find ignorance that we find in the society. And that's why we need to warn ourselves and warn the people around us, as we began with, that dealing with magic is something that can take you outside the fold of Islam. It's not something trivial that we should turn away from it. It's not just like an innovation or just a bad practice. It is a dangerous element. And the more that you go and research, you find a number of people inside our society are involved inside this evil practice. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and ability to stay away from it and strengthen our iman until the day we return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولجميع المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه الغفور الرحيم. Any questions or comments or corrections, you take them.